sets.
Woo!
Everything that saves all your crazy.
Here's what we doing.
Check 1, 2. I like the way that sound. Wait, I like the way that sound. Hold up now, old school.
Yes, yes, y'all. Rock, rock, y'all. KRS, y'all. Kick Capri, y'all. Let's go, y'all. Block party, y'all. Woo! Forget the hype, here's the lesson. Hip-hop culture turned 47. Kick Capri on the turntable weapon. KRS-ONE, take it back, 77. Yo, just before the rap, long before TV and all of that. 2 turntables, a mic and raw rap. Or rather MCing is what we call that. A jam, most of y'all never saw that. That's why right now we bringing it all back. KRS-ONE, I'm just a tall cat. Original MC, I am called that. Rappers today, what they say be all whack. DJ Kick Capri brings the boom back, taking you back with skills, we prove that. I'm the MC, the crowd, I move that. Security's like, you got to move back. KRS rocks the old and new tracks, whether rock, reggae, EDM, or trap. I rock the microphone, that's a fact. KRS Kick Capri back to back. We came first, you dudes came after that. That's why they all jealous. We the true legends, it's nothing they can tell us. No, you can't buy us, nope, you can't sell us. Whether over music or acapellas, we them good fellas, nope, we never fell. Organic intelligence is faster than Dell.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Temple of Hip Hop. I am KRS-ONE. The Temple of Hip Hop is a hip hop preservation society. Actually, I should say a hip hop preservation ministry, archive, school, and society. Our main aim is to further develop and preserve hip hop as a divinely inspired culture of peace and prosperity. Our strategy to achieve this mission, preserving hip hop and further developing hip hop, is to preserve and further develop the hip hopper. We've realized from as far back as the early 90s that we are not just doing hip hop, we are hip hop. And that rap is something that we are doing, but hip hop is something that we are living. And it is this revelation that has created our philosophies, our culture, our traditions and way of life. So if you're part of this particular call, you're part of a special, actually a special group of people creating actual culture. And we're learning our culture so that we may have unity of thought. Excuse me. I want to shout out G. Simone, the ACRONOLOGIST, before we begin, and also Minister Sun One, as well as Zinaru. Shout out to you guys as well for making this also happen. I'm in Virginia right now at a birthday party for my friend Tim Terra, and Whitley. We did the freestyle. Those that was able to see the freestyle, so a film called The Freestyle was giving lessons to MCs about freestyling and live performance. Me and Tim actually put that DVD, that little movie presentation together, and that's how we really started. He did a whole bunch of other things. He did videos for me as well, a whole bunch of, the list is just too long. We've worked together for almost over 5 years now. But it's his birthday. Yesterday was his birthday, and so we came up here to Virginia to celebrate Tim Terra's birthday in that sense. So there it is. So I'm in Virginia, as you can see, or maybe you can detect it. I'm in a hotel right now here in Virginia, but the lesson must continue. And so what I want to start off with is the idea of heritage, of lineage, and of property. Like we said, we're building culture. We're talking about this for real. And those that are hip-hop professors out there and teachers, those who have hip-hop courses, this is something you may want to really take a look at. I mean, look, you may want to look at the Temple of Hip-Hop all the way around and get yourself a copy of the Gospel of Hip-Hop if you're teaching anything regarding hip-hop. It'll help you and your students. But beside that, this particular lesson has to do with your actual citizenship with a culture, meaning that, do you really believe that hip hop is your culture? Is hip hop really your nation, or is this just rhetoric? Is this just something you say because it's cool to say? I am hip hop, or whatever you say. It's just cool to say. It's not really felt, and when I say really felt, I'm asking you to question yourself in this regard, challenge yourself with these self-questions. How real am I about this culture? Not about the music, not about what I can get out of hip-hop, but how serious am I about hip-hop as a sustainable culture, a nation, a community of self-governed people? How real are we really about that? Well, that's the essence of all of these teachings, and that's the essence of our teaching today. We're reading from real hip-hop. We was taking it in sections because this particular reading is actually long, because we also want to get into explanations as well. But and I'm getting myself together here as well. Take a look. This is The Gospel of Hip Hop. Make sure you have a copy of this. Gospel of Hip Hop. Make sure you have a copy of this. This is our textbook and what we study from. The Gospel of Hip Hop is also our meeting place for character. For those that are part of the official hip hop culture, not the rhetoric, not the talk, but those who actually did the work to make hip hop a culture. All that knowledge is here, and our character is here as well. And this is where all true hip hoppers meet. We meet right here. So I'm reading from the Gospel of Hip Hop. I'm on page 87. Page 87, and I'm going to run through. I'm not going to rush, of course, but I'm going to be consistent with this because there's a lot to go over with this. But it's not to be, it can't be gone over in this environment. I'm in a hotel, I'm on the move, I'm running. But I can get this lesson, the gist of the lesson, you can get it right now, and you're gonna get it right now. But you'll know as we keep going, there are other books and other materials that I need to pull from to really explain this. And what am I explaining? Today we're talking about heritage, culture, lineage, and property. What is your real property? How real are you about hip-hop? Is hip-hop your real property? Does hip-hop belong to you? You know, like for real? Because most of us, we act like hip-hop is just hip-hop. Like it exists on its own by itself. It doesn't really exist for and from us. We are too objective with our own culture and our own self-expression in the world. When you realize that hip-hop is the name of our group in the world. Those that break, MC, graffiti write, DJ, beatbox, certain fashion, language, all of you on the call right now. Hip-hop is the name of your identity in world history. Think about that for a minute. You have, all kinds of cultures are being documented in world history. Well, hip-hop is an urban culture that's documented in world history. You have to decide what you want that culture to look like, what that culture is going to mean, what that heritage is going to mean to future people that are like you. How are you protecting them? People you don't even know. I say this all the time. You probably hear me say it every week, but we are the first of our kind. So what we do with hip-hop in its first 40, 50 years, that's going to determine what it's going to be for the rest of its existence. People we can't even think about right now are going to be participating in what we are doing right now. So let's get it right. Let's add something to the world, the earth. The earth and the world. The world is human affairs. The earth is what with nature. To both nature and to human affairs, let's add something to the world. We have that opportunity as hip hop. Complaining about the government is useless when you could build your own. Complaining about police misconduct is useless when you could police yourself. No justice in the courts. Well, try forgiving one another. Try treating each other with respect and with care. You don't even need a court. Try looking out for each other. Be each other's, my brother's keeper, my sister's keeper, my parents' keeper. Try being that. We don't even need court. We don't even need police. This is the level that hip-hop aspires to rise to, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So we're talking about property and what the real existence of property. What is the real existence of property? What does it really mean to own something? Turn to page 87, and we're going to continue our reading from paragraph 139. Paragraph 139, we're going to continue our reading, page 87. Here we go, y'all. Know this. A hip-hop element is one of hip-hop's cultural expressions. It is a material good. It is our intellectual property. I just want to read that one more time. Know that, and it's not a highlight. Just want to read it one more time. Know this. A hip-hop element is one of hip-hop's cultural expressions. It is a material good. It is our intellectual property. It is our capital. It is an act, art, or idea that further expresses hip-hop's culture and consciousness. This is what the elements of hip-hop are. Breaking, MCing, graffiti, or DJing, beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, and street entrepreneurialism. These elements are our property. It is a skill. These elements, an element, is a skill that reflects the character of the hip-hop consciousness and enhances the health, love, awareness, and wealth of the truly committed hip-hopper. An element is usually created when the hip-hop sight, awareness, is applied to a subject or object, material or immaterial. Presently, and let me just stop here real quick. An element is usually created when the hip-hop sight, and notice the spelling. An element is usually created when the hip-hop sight, awareness, perception, is applied to a subject or object, material or immaterial. And what I'm saying here is that the creation of hip-hop's elements is our perception on either a subject or an object. It is our worldview that creates or manipulates subjects and objects in the material world, and uniquely have those objects perform according to our consciousness and who we are. Then that becomes an element. We create that to be an element. I'll give you an example. The turntable was considered an appliance, like a refrigerator, a stove, an iron, a gun, a turntable, like a radio or a television. But when hip-hoppers looked at the turntable, everyone was told that the turntable was used like this. You put a record on the turntable. Some of them were automatic. They would change the records for you. You could stack records up and they would just play them. But you basically put the needle on the record, the arm and the needle on the record, and let the record play. Hip-hoppers did not go along with that approach to that appliance. We, from within ourselves, approach the appliance, or should I say, Grandmaster Flash from within himself, and Cool DJ Herc, and people like Jazzy J from Zulu Nation, and all these guys within themselves, especially Grandmaster Flash and Grand Wizard Theodore, especially Grandmaster Flash, within themselves, looked at the turntable as an appliance and said, this is what I think it should do. I know what the world says it should do, but this is what I think it should do. And as a result, the elements that changed it was called cutting, mixing, and scratching, or what we call DJing. D-E-E-J-A-Y-I-N, different from D.J. A D.J. is an acronym for disc jockey. Hip-hop's disc jockeys are not just playing recorded records or speaking over recorded records. Hip-hop's DJ interacts with the record, interacts with the performance of the record itself. And we're going to hear more about that later on. But it interacts. Hold on one second. Oh, okay. Simone's over here just giving me a message. The DJ interacts with the performance of the record. That's why we spell it DEEJAYIN and not just DJ. This is a certain kind of activity. DEEJAYIN is a new word in English language. And notice how I say DEEJAYIN, not with the G. And there's no hyphen on the end of the N either. It's DJing. That's a new term, a new word in English language, in the English lexicon. That's a new word. And that word refers to the act of interacting with the recorded song, with the music. You don't just listen to the music, you're interacting with it. You're cutting, mixing, and scratching it. You're bringing it back. You're rewinding it. You're talking over it. You're doing all types of stuff with it. You're not just allowing it to just play. Now, that mentality, that worldview, creates hip-hop's elements. When we look at things and apply our soul to them, which is an element too, we create more elements. Our divine elements give birth to other elements. So, an element is usually created when the hip-hop sight, hip-hop's awareness and perception, is applied to a subject or an object. When we think for ourselves and interpret material objects and subjects, intellectual subjects, when we interpret them for ourselves, we make them elements of our being. Presently, hip-hop's elements are breaking, MCing, graffiti art, DJing, beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, and street entrepreneurialism. These elements are symbolized throughout this instrument as BEGDBFLKE. Hip-hop's elements, and there are two different spellings, are the sources of hip-hop culture's political power. They are also the sources of hip-hop's livelihood. They are how the hip-hopper provides for and protects herself and her family. True hip-hoppers are specialized in at least one or more of hip-hop's 9 elements. By itself, one hip-hop element is not the totality of hip-hop's culture. It is a representation or an introduction to the culture itself. To fully comprehend hip-hop's elements artistically, one must gain an understanding of hip-hop culturally, even legally. In the United States, human beings are thought to have certain inalienable rights, rights that are natural to the existence of a human being. And this is also not the only meaning of inalienable. I'm not going to get into that now, but inalienable means something that you cannot give away. And that's a tricky thing to be in a constitution. It's a tricky thing. The rights that you're putting into a document rights that cannot be given away. So how do we have any rights? You know, rights have to be declared and defended, but within yourself. Nobody can give you rights. They're either going to stop terrorizing you and abusing you, or they're going to continue terrorizing and abusing you, but you always have rights. In his book, Cases and Materials on the Law of Real Property, law professor Ray Andrews Brown writes, quote, "Man by virtue of his existence is endowed with certain natural desires and claims. Among the most common and apparent of these are the freedom of his body from injury or restraint, the exercise of his faculties in order that he may obtain the material things essential to his life and comfort, and the possession and enjoyment of these physical things of the world which he has brought under his control," end quote. Professor Brown mentions the above as part of an explanation as to man's natural right to property and how the state or community in which man may live can override such a right for the good of all. Mr. Brown writes, quote, organized society also has its own de facto interests, the most important of which is the preservation of peace and order, end quote, which can come in direct conflict with man's natural rights to exist and to be happy. However, in return for giving up one's natural rights and freedoms, quote, the state recognizes, protects, controls, and adjusts individuals and social claims and interests, end quote. The state, although determined to preserve peace and order, still recognizes or should recognize the rights of the individual. As Professor Brown points out, quote, when an individual claim or interest receives recognition or protection from the state, it achieves the status of what is technically known as a legal right. Thus, a landowner under normal circumstances has the right, which will be vindicated by the state, to exclude others from entrance to his premises. The correlative to this right is the duty which others have to observe this right. Now, this is interesting because, and that's why I say I can't get totally into it, and I may have to double back and give you this because there are other books that I have back at the crib, back at the home, that can further substantiate this. But let me paraphrase what's being said here, because there's a lot being said here. Let me just go through it with you one more time. This is what Professor Brown is pointing out. This is about property, and we're starting with the rules of society even. And the function of society and the rules of society and how it pertains to your right to freedom. You know, every human is free. In nature, you are free. But that freedom is dangerous because everybody in nature is free. So if I'm free, and I'm big, and like I'm 6'6", okay? So if some little dude that's, 5 feet or whatever, no disrespect to anybody who's 5 feet, but if you are a smaller person than me, and I feel that I could just grab you, abuse you, and take what's yours for my own survival, nature approves this. Okay, now the way nature balances this off is that as a shorter person, you may have spikes on your back, or you may be able to spit a venom, or you may be able to run faster or climb quicker. Nature does compensate with abilities, but the bottom line is if I can catch it, I can eat it. If I can take it, I can have it. That's nature. Now, man and woman in society is saying we're not living at the level of the beast. We're going to learn how not to rob and steal from one another. I don't need to just take from you. I don't need to rape you. I don't need to murder you and your children and then eat them. This is where humanity comes from. You know what I'm saying? This is how we were acting and had to work ourselves out of this kind of activity because it was non-productive. Over generations, it proved to be non-productive. This is why these practices were discontinued. So I bring that little piece up because we're talking about the state, and we're talking about the freedom that an individual actually has. And then if you want to be part of a society or part of a state, part of a community, you give up those natural freedoms, your natural impulses, your natural way to be. You give up your God-given freedom to join a community and a society that has rules and laws and ways in which we're going to exist together. So let me go over this again. I'm at paragraph 47. As Professor Brown points out, when an individual claim or interest receives recognition and protection from the state, this is where all rights come from, the state, who claims they come from God. But basically, if there's no one that's going to come and defend my rights, if I'm not going to defend my rights, and there's no other outside person that's going to defend my rights, I can be a victim of anybody. And this is the African American condition right now. We have no rights. And why we have no rights? We have no rights because we have no law unto ourselves. We have not yet said we are an African American nation. We're going to join together, and here's the basics of that nation. Here's what we know we are and can never go back on. Here's who we know our ancestors are and the character by which we know we have to uphold and cannot go back on. Here's our standards. Here's our basic principles. And we put that into what is called a constitution, because you're constituting a group. You're putting a group together. So this is the together. And this becomes our laws. We're not going past this. This is what it is. This becomes our laws. Now, once we follow our own laws, written down on paper for all to see, once we have our own laws, we have our own community. Not when you have your own land. When you have your own laws, you have your own community. When the community wants to follow its own laws, understands its laws, and knows why it's following those laws, you have a community. You have a nation. You have a culture. But if everybody's breaking laws and have no respect for law, don't want to come under some kind of guidance, some kind of principle, those that don't want to do that, they are lawless. And when you become an outlaw, this other group that has determined amongst themselves, we are going to fight evil. And this is white folk. Shout out to white folk right now. Their ancestors, you can say whatever you want. I mean, you know, I'm a staunch critic. You already know. But let's talk truth. That's what this is about. Truth. Well, white folk are the ones who said, we're going to stomp out evil anywhere it is in the world. And this is where that notion comes from about, it's abused today, but the original seed of white folk in a community, the original seed was who defends the weak. This was the original Christian, European Christian seed. This was what Rome started. This was part of their philosophy. Who defends the weak? And the weak was from the Africans. Africans were strong, had everything. Okay, and then there were other sects of people, you know, that had everything and didn't care about nobody. And, you know, Atlantis is an African civilization. And one of the things we know about Atlantis, or what was said about it, one of the rumors of Atlantis, is that Atlantis was haughty. The people of Atlantis thought they were all that. And they were. They were all that. But they walked around with it like a t-shirt. I'm all that. And didn't want to work, didn't care for others who were starving and struggling. And these great Atlanteans, these great Ethiopians, these great Egyptians, the Cushites, the people from Mali, they were just coming in and taking stuff. Take your child. Take your stuff. You can't beat them. You can't fight them. They are physically supermen and women. You can't beat them with nothing you have hurts them. They come in and grab you by the throat, pop your neck, and take your goats. Well, the original Christians said, who defends the person who can't defend themselves? And now you get the original police force, not that slave trading, slave catching thing, but the original police force where a group of spiritual people come together and say, we are going to defend those that cannot defend themselves. We could defend ourselves because we already put thief on the ground. We already cut, the murderer's already hanging from our roof, right? He thought he was coming into our house, thought he was going to take something from our grandmother, thought he was going to snatch our daughter, thought he was going to slave our child, but now he's our rug. Okay, you see him on the floor there, right? You see what we stepping on? He's the rug now. Okay, we make lampshades out of them type of dudes, and that's real. That's why I mention it. You know, Native Americans ain't no joke. Africans ain't no joke. They used to wear their enemies. You playing with it. They used to wear them. Human skin sewed up into a pair of pants. Okay, Indians took scalps, kill you, and then cut the top of your head. Some of them took your whole head and put it as a necklace around, you know, and what? Okay, So the point of the matter here, I'm getting deep in it. This is real history. This is real history. So what we're getting to here, what let me point out here is that if someone's not willing to protect you, you're vulnerable. Okay? If you can't protect yourself, or if someone else is not willing to protect you, you become vulnerable. And a lot of people were vulnerable. And not vulnerable just because they were physically weak, but people don't like killing people. The majority of people don't do all that. So the one who's willing to kill on your behalf becomes your leader, becomes your government, becomes the one telling you what to do. And here's the point. When an individual claim or interest receives recognition and protection from this group of people, the state, those who are willing to kill for you, they are protecting you. They are murderers and killers, but on your behalf. When this happens, when your interest gets approved by them, you have a right, because they're willing to defend to the death you to have your way. So, when an individual claim or interest receives recognition and protection from the state, it achieves the status of what is technically known as a legal right. Thus, a landowner, under normal circumstances, has the right, which will be vindicated by the state. This is an example. To exclude others from entrance to his premises. The correlative to this right is the duty which others have to observe this right. So if you have this right, I have this right. And because I have this right, you have this right. Okay? Or should I do a point here and say, I have this right, so you have this right. If I don't have this right, you don't have this right. If I have this right, you have this right. And because you have this right, I have this right. So this is community. We all have rights, and we're giving each other these rights, and we're willing to defend our rights and your right to the death. I bring this up because when it comes to hip-hop, it seems that the United States is not yet recognizing or protecting our right to our own property. It seems that the United States does not recognize our real existence as hip-hop and thus cannot protect our interests under law. And what does this mean legally? First, it means that if we are unprotected by law and the state's obligation to protect our interests as hip-hoppers practicing hip-hop is non-existent, then corporate bodies of all sorts can invade our culture and freely take from our culture whatever they choose. Because not only have we not put up a legal fence around our own intellectual property, BEGDBFLKE, but we also have not invoked our inherent rights to our own property. Not only are we not protecting our property, we're not even calling our property our property. And then, of course, there's nobody outside of us that says we're going to defend hip-hop. And it's probably like China is not saying we made $1 billion off pressing CDs for y'all, and we see you're being exploited. So we're going to come in and defend you against American corporate exploitation. Ain't nobody saying that. Africa ain't saying that. China ain't saying. Africa is all them little countries within the continent. They ain't coming to our rescue. China ain't coming to our rescue. Saudi Arabia or any of them Arab countries, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, these places, they're not coming to our rescue. They all know our plight, but they're not coming to our rescue. And that's the deal that states have with each other. That's the deal that nations have with each other. I won't incriminate you if you don't incriminate me. I know what you did, but I'm not going to defend those people against you if you don't defend these people I got over here against me. And look at what's going on. This is global, okay? This is global nation building, or should I say the relationships between nations. It is not that I'm on paragraph 30. I'm sorry, I'm on paragraph 150, page 89. We're coming up to our first break. It is not that corporate entities exploited our artistic elements for the good of their own interest. It is more that because we were ignorant of our rights to property, others with knowledge took advantage of our ignorance. through unfair contracts and even blatant theft. They made our property their property. And the states in which we live did not protect us. Let me say this one more time. Through unfair contracts and even blatant theft, they made our property their property, and the states, the states in which we live, the state, you know, Virginia, Atlanta, New York, okay, the states in which we live. Hold on, let me find my space. The states in which we live did not protect us or our interests as a group. However, we were and still are expected to pay the taxes and abide by the laws of a nation or a state that didn't and still doesn't protect us and our property. Remember, the object of the state is to protect you and your property. The state we live in did not protect us or our property. This is proof of our exploitation. They were supposed to protect it. Even the corporations coming to us should have at least said, we understand that this is your stuff. We want to make money from it, but this is your stuff. And you're going to have to even learn how to take care of your own stuff. Nobody said that to us. They just said, keep rapping. Keep making the music. We know you have a culture. We know what you're doing. We can't do it. You're the one doing it, but we're going to exploit you on your ignorance. That's a cruel thing to do to a person. A person doesn't know. A community doesn't know, and you take advantage of them because they don't know. That's robbery. That's theft. And as temple members, we can't be like that. Your personality can't be like that. You know, you're taking advantage of people's ignorance. And I tell you this, in the future, those who are ignorant always find out. So it's like, I've experienced this in my lifetime. I treat everybody with respect, and I try to educate those who don't know. If I see that you don't know, I try to point you in the direction of knowledge. Even if it's against my interest financially, it's better that you know, because I know eventually you're gonna know. So I don't want you to say in the future, man, Chris knew that, and he ain't tell me. And he played me. I didn't know, and he consistently played me. And now look what he got based on him manipulating me too. That's another level to it. Nah, we can't live like that. If people don't know something, you can't take advantage of their ignorance. You have to bring them to knowledge. Or don't do business with them. But that's the way you get to sleep at night. That's the way you get to 60 and 70 and have no regrets. Just ripping people off because they don't know and you know. That don't get you, that's not longevity. So let me read this last paragraph, and then let's come up on our break. As a matter of fact, you know what? That was it, because I have to come back. This question, but what is property, begins our second break. So let me just read this 130 one more time to you, and let's close on our first break. It is not that corporate entities exploited our artistic elements for the good of their own interests. It is more that because we were ignorant of our rights to property, others with knowledge took advantage of our ignorance. Through unfair contracts and even blatant theft, they made our property their property. And the states in which we lived did not protect us or our interests as a group. However, we were and still are expected to pay the taxes and abide by the laws of a nation that didn't and still doesn't protect us or our property. That's real right there for hip-hoppers. And this is what we have to begin to look at. Where are we being protected? And because we're unprotected, who's robbing us because of the unprotection? We don't really know. So how are we really being duped and exploited right now because of our collective ignorance? Let's take a break and you think about that for a minute. I'll be right back. It's the Temple of Hip Hop.
I got the lingo. The lingo, the lingo, the lingo. I got that lingo, the lingo, the lingo. I got That lingo, that street lingo I bring, yo. Acronology for society now to cling to. Too many people think slow. I'm not just an OG, I'm an original hustler. You like, oh, follow life's outcome willingly, that's flow. Wisdom, when I simply decide on more or more. I'm bringing it to you raw like a razor. Faith, focus, and ignore these haters. Acronology is dope. Here's another one for faith. Write it down, for all it takes, hope. Broaden your scope, it's the teacher, you heard of me. I represent the struggle in the hood, most certainly. But struggle's more than a word to me. It's a situation that reminds us God's grace lasts eternally. Lady, love and develop yourself. H-Law, health, love, awareness, and wealth. Acronology, it's not just BRB or be right back. You gotta check the words you using, like religious. It can mean realizing every life in God's image offers useful solutions. So while you cruising looking for a snack, think diet. Did I eat that? Put down the cake, seek help and proper exercise. Rewind that spells shape. These definitions go beyond the intellect. Like mine, may I now direct a new philosophy called Acronology. I say it with the word inside of me. The heat is on, you can't leave it alone. This whole thing's created by G. Simone. Even KRS is an acronym. It means knowledge reigns supreme. Spin it back again, I got the lingo. Ling, ling, the lingo. The lingo. Ling, ling, the lingo. I got that lingo. Ling, ling, the lingo. The lingo. Ling, ling.
Welcome back. This is the Temple of Hip Hop. I am KRS-ONE. Again, shout out to G. Simone, the Acronologist, who's helping me here. She's here as well, helping us get this done. Big up to Minister Zenaru. I'm thinking about you actually at this particular moment. And of course, shout out to Sun One, Minister Sun One, and that phenomenal album that you just dropped. Make sure y'all go and listen to that. Nice. Wait a minute. First, let me just wipe my face real quick. Where's my? Okay, right here. Hold on 1 second, y'all. I know this is live, and so while I'm talking, while I'm wiping, let me talk. We're talking about property. We're talking about property. We're talking about property and what is truly yours, and the true theft of your intellectual property and how to stop that and now maintain it. It's not just so much about who stole. That's not the point. The point is, how do we maintain? How do we put a fence around our culture so that more theft does not occur? I'm bringing you now to paragraph 151. On page 89. I'm on paragraph 151, page 89. But what is property? Property in its common sense is thought of as something owned, a possession of some sort. Hip-hop's elements are indeed our property in a common sense. They are the tangible, physical results of our intangible cultural reality. However, in a strict legal sense, property is explained by Mr. Brown, property as explained by Mr. Brown, quote, denotes not the physical things themselves, but the rights that the individual concerned has in them. This is important right here. Then it's not a highlight. This is just important. Well, you can highlight it if you want. This won't be on no test or anything. This is not our official highlight. But this is something that you may want to remember. I'll say it again. Property, as explained by Mr. Brown, professor, denotes not the physical things themselves. This is not property. But the rights that the individual concerned has in them. My ability to use this is property. This is not property. My access and ability to use it is property. In a strict legal sense, land is not property, but the subject of property. The term property, although in common parlance frequently applied to a tract of land or a chattel, in its legal signification means only the rights of the owner in relation to it. The rights of the owner in relation to an object is called property. This is important for true hip-hop scholars to know, because when seeking to preserve our culture, hip-hop, we must also know the legal route of such preservation as it relates to real property. You cannot fully preserve something that you do not actually own. But as we can see, ownership in a legal sense has less to do with what is actually possessed, as it has more to do with one's right to property, one's ability to use what is said to be owned. Use is the real side of property. Professor Brown continues, if property in land consists in certain essential rights, and a physical interference with the land substantially subverts one or more of these rights, or those rights, such interference takes the owner's property. Just you interfering with me not being able to get to my land takes my land. I can't use it. The right of indefinite user or of using indefinitely is an essential quality or attribute of absolute property, without which absolute property can have no legal existence. Use is the real side of property. If the right of indefinite user, this is a term, the right of indefinite user, okay? If the right of indefinite user is an essential element of absolute property or complete ownership, whatever physical interference annuls this right takes the property. It is not so much that our physical property has been taken from us. It is more the fact that our ability or inability to use, control, direct, alter, etc., our own hip-hop elements for our own good has been interfered with, even stifled by greedy corporate interests and our own ignorance, and such an act is the taking or giving away of our property. Let me hit you with that one more time. It is not so much that our physical property has been taken from us. It is more the fact that our ability or inability to use, control, direct, alter, etc., our own hip-hop elements for our own good has been interfered with. That's it, right there. We can't use, control, direct, or alter hip-hop in any way that we see fit for our own good. That's how they took the culture. That's the taking of the culture. When you can't use the culture for your own good, but they could use it for theirs, or when they interfere, their interference with you using your own elements, your own self-expression for your own good, their interference with that takes your culture, or takes your property. Takes your property. The interference, not somebody stealing, somebody coming up and taking this out my hand and taking it for themselves is not stealing my property. But somebody preventing me from getting to it takes my property. So if somebody denies you the knowledge of your culture, they took your culture. They don't have to possess it. They just have to prevent you from using it. And then they took your culture. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Because on an African American side, we've lost nothing. Africa's still there. They took our mind, our sense of king and queenship, our sense of statehood, our sense of leadership, our sense of community, our sense of us being a people that got interfered with. And as a result of interfering with our traditions and our culture and so on, you took the culture. Not because you took the diamonds, the gold, the copper, the silver, the livestock, the plants, and all. No, that's theft, but that still didn't take our property. What took our property was we don't have access to it. Right. Let me read that one more time. Let me just hit that one more time. It is not so much that our physical property has been taken from us. It is more the fact that our ability or inability to use, control, direct, alter, etc., our own hip-hop elements for our own good has been interfered with. Nobody took anything. They interfered with our ability to use. Even stifled by greedy corporate interests and our own ignorance, and such an act is the taking or giving away of our property. Our indefinite use of hip-hop's artistic and intellectual elements still remains our property today. It is us, as a specialized group in the world, that must invoke and lawfully demand our rights to property as it pertains to hip-hop and its cultural elements and products. And how do you do that? By using it, by being hip-hop. I use hip-hop, I control hip-hop for my own good and the good of my people. You don't own hip-hop, you don't control hip-hop, I own and control hip-hop. And this is how they take your culture when you believe in their ownership. You believe in the Grammy Award, the American Music Award, the Source, I'm going back, not the Source Award. What is it, the BET Award? The BET Hip Hop Award? The CM, the Country Awards? We believe in that stuff. And that's how they took the culture. They're preventing you access to your own culture because you believe that your culture has to be validated and sanctioned by them. Now, I'll never give up my culture or have them take my property in such a way. They cannot. Here's the truth. Here's the ultimate truth. And why, at that last part, we say, or giving away. It says, and such an act is the taking of, is the taking or giving away, is the taking or giving away of our property. Okay? Such an act is the taking or giving away of our property. Okay? Now, look at this real quick. This is interesting. I'm sorry. This is interesting. More than being taken, we are giving away. Wow. Oh, I can't even get it out my mouth. Yes, there are those who are interfering with our culture, which is the legal sense in taking one's property. You're interfering with what I can do with my own property. But in ignorance, we are also giving them our property. We don't even know that it's our property. We're just giving it. And they paying us, giving us money, so they don't have to feel like they took anything. We gave you money. We aren't you happy that you're on TV? We gave you an award too. Aren't you happy? Nobody taking anything from you. You're on the Fortune 500, right? Nobody took nothing from you. You're a millionaire. You're rich. You have money. And look what happened. They gave you money, which is worthless in their world, and took from you what is valuable in the whole world. This is for all those people out there that pride themselves on being rich because of hip hop. No disrespect, of course, you know, we all need money. We all know that. And nobody's pulling nobody's card or trying to diss rich rappers. We're not talking, maintain your maturity of mind here. But let's talk truth for a minute. This is the temple of hip hop. Let's deal with the truth, okay? And we're talking about property. And we're talking about real ownership of real property. Money is not even on this level Okay, this is not even a money level. Or when money comes into this level, it is to show you how you've been ripped off. Unity amongst us is more valuable than anything that could have been given to us. Remember, Sugar Hill Records was owned by a black man and a black woman, and they were putting out black artists. This is the first real rap label, rap record label. But look, I don't want to diss nobody, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these people are my friends as well, so I ain't gonna front. You know, the Robinsons are friends of the Parkers. I'm not even gonna front on that. You know what I'm saying? Big up the Leland and all of that. But the truth of the matter is that they were the first. Sugar Hill Records, Enjoy Records. That was a black-owned company with black people working it. Grandmaster Flash, The Furious Five, Treacherous 3, everybody was there. Everybody did Sugar Hill. Sequence, I'm trying to think now of all the names. Funky 4 plus one more. You know, everybody was there. What happened? What happened? How can we create something amongst ourselves and then suddenly every other corporation, music corporation, feels they could just use it. We could just take it. We gonna do it now. And put Sugar Hill out of business. Now our culture belongs to them. See, we were too young and ignorant to see what we were doing back in the 80s and 90s, but it's the new millennium and we learned from our mistakes. We could see back, but that's the reason I'm bringing this up, not to incriminate anybody or to disrespect anybody, but this is what really happened. And we got to talk about what really happened. And what really happened was they gave us trinkets, gold, silver, diamonds, money, fame, but none of that is 1% of what they took from you. And what did they take from you? Your mind. The expression of your being, which clearly everyone on the whole globe was with. African Americans from the Civil Rights Movement, they would have been so remarkably smart if they had took all, do you remember the Talented 10, W.E.B. Du Bois and all them? Okay, that talk. Well, if Howard University, as just one, okay, had have put their mind to what was going on with early rap and early hip-hop as opposed to despising us, dissing us, steamrolling, reverends and ministers steamrolling our albums in big pumped ceremonies saying we're doing away with gangster rap. Our own mothers and fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, brothers and sisters saying, "Oh, Snoop Dogg's album is disrespecting African Americans and this, that, and the other, and he's not this and he's not that," amongst others like Luke Skywalker and everybody else. Instead, I mean, you can argue the morality of these records. Of course, you can. Anybody can. But I'm talking about intellect. These are scholars who's supposed to know what law is. How many black lawyers we have in this country? How many property lawyers that know this? This is just one statement in a spiritual book. People have gone to school for this and know this. Yet, they knew this and allowed us to still be ripped off. We just getting up on it now. They knew this when we was coming up and did not protect us, our own parents, meaning those who studied law. They didn't come back and say, yo, this thing called rap, we cannot allow it to go to corporate America. We can't allow. I would have been up for that argument if Jesse or Sharpton, somebody came to me and said, Chris, listen, this thing called hip hop is $10 billion a year to these corporations. You can't do nothing for the NAACP. We can't do nothing for Action Network. We can't do nothing. Come on, Chris. I would have had to hold my head low and be like, yo, you know, you right. What's up with the Black Panther Party? What's up with we got $10 billion and none of our organizations are funded? We got 10 billion and we can't build some sort of legal defense for our people who's getting railroaded into the prison system. We can't come up with health care. We can't educate our own children, and we're 10.5 billion a year. Nah. It's time to think. You can't allow that to continue to happen and you sit back like some dumbass slave and say, oh yeah, well, bling bling. Look at the depth of the ignorance when our children are on television talking stupid, cooning, basically. And scholars with knowledge are saying nothing. They're actually cooning with them. Whew. Let's continue in that sense. Hold on, let me find my place again. Okay, I'm all the way at the bottom here, page 90, paragraph 157. Our indefinite use of hip-hop's artistic, intellectual elements still remains our property today. It is us as a specialized group in the world. Oh, okay, wait. I did read this. Let me just read it again. I did read this, but I'm going to say it again. It is us as a specialized group in the world that must invoke and lawfully demand our rights to property as it pertains to hip-hop and its cultural elements and products. Property itself is an intangible thing. It is the right that a person has to make use of and enjoy a tangible thing. That's what property is, a right, and not the tangible thing itself. If we stop to think, we will discover also that property is not one single protected interest or claim to a thing, but the totality of a number of different, though related interests. The interest of possessing, of using, of altering, of conveying, etc., the thing in question. Hip-hop is an intangible thing that produces thing in question, end quote. Hip-hop is an intangible thing that produces tangible things. And our inability to possess, use, alter, etc., our own hip-hop tangibles is the beginning of our loss of property. An example of this is XM Satellite, who's stealing hip-hop right now. They have a station called Hip Hop Nation. And the way in which they're depicting the Hip Hop Nation is contrary to everything the real Hip Hop Nation is really about, even down to the music style. And they're just doing it, and nobody can stop them. We, the Temple of Hip Hop, have had conversations with them. We have ongoing conversations with them as well. But this is why I speak in this way. They're not moving. They're not moving. They're telling us, yeah, we understand. But again, go turn on the station right now. It's ridiculous, okay? But this is also how you're taking our culture. Now, of course, just so you know, we're looking to, I can't say anything about our strategy here, but we're not taking this sitting down. Let's just say that. We simply have got to stop giving away in ignorance our resources and rights to real property. This we must seriously begin to understand. Moving along now, we come to this frequently used term in our culture, overstanding. Here, overstanding is a state of awareness developed primarily from having a first-hand experience with learned subjects and objects. It is different from understanding, which is a comprehension of learned subjects and objects gained primarily through having been taught. Now, let us highlight that real quick, because what I want to show you in the teaching of this is that the paragraph just before it, paragraph 59, ends our little lesson on property. And we're moving on to another lesson now that has to do with what the proper meaning of the word overstanding is. And when you look at overstanding, that's what I say here too, because I want to double back on this, because the Oxford English's definition of overstanding or approach to overstanding is not the one here. This definition of overstanding is cultural and speaks to this particular book as well. The Oxford English has a very nice overstanding and to overstand and overstanding definition as well, which even goes beyond this. It's a slightly different definition. Let me say that in the Oxford English Dictionary, to overstand means to stand next to or to stand behind. It doesn't even mean to stand over. It means to stand next to or stand by or be in support of. That's what it means to overstand. A little different. You would think it means to overstand, to be over something, but it doesn't really mean that in Oxford English. And that's what I mean about this particular lesson we're reading here in a hotel room. I don't have all my books with me here, and I do want to go back on this at some point and pull out the other knowledge, because it is fascinating when you really get down to it. Someone who understands, so highlight 160. Because this is important. Let me read it again. Highlight 160. Moving along now, we come to this frequently used term in our culture, overstanding. Here, overstanding is a state of awareness developed primarily from having a first-hand experience with learned subjects and objects. It is different from understanding, which is a comprehension of learned subjects and objects gained primarily from having been taught. Someone who understands has a comprehension of taught information, acquired knowledge. Such is the objective approach to hip-hop and hip-hop. Someone who overstands actually experiences the information that has been taught and comprehended, acquired wisdom. Such is the subjective approach to hip-hop and hip-hop. Know this. Along with being loved and being needed, most people just want to be understood. For the more you understand life, the easier life shall be. Above all learning, we must truly seek understanding, and if we are blessed, overstanding. For life is to be under and overstood, not just lived. But to truly lend your mind to the understanding of something other than yourself requires a certain appreciation for what is about to be studied. Like, you have to appreciate what you're about to get. Therefore, let us seek to understand before we seek to form opinions and views on things we know little about. Let us also be unified in our understanding of ourselves as hip-hoppers. What does this mean? It means that we must continuously seek the truth and the nature of our authentic being as hip-hoppers. This is what shall endure. This is what shall ensure our success. Relying upon rap music's incomplete history is not how we are going to truly understand the divinity of our hip-hop nature. Hip-hop's true history is not the history of rap music entertainment. Rap music's entertainment history can be included in hip-hop's history, but to interpret hip-hop's cultural history through mainstream rap music entertainment is a mistake. Most people today approach hip-hop as a music genre because that's how hip-hop music is promoted. Icons such as Cool DJ Herc are referred to as rap pioneers, even though Herc, are hip-hop's cultural architects, even spiritual leaders. In my observations, this perception of people like Cool DJ Herc, the recognized father of hip-hop, stagnates our collective development today as a hip-hop community. We simply do not value one another, and it is this devaluing of each other that keeps us in a valueless state. Just want to read this one part again and have you highlight the first part of this paragraph, paragraph 67. Here's the part that we're highlighting. Well, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and get. I'm gonna read this to you right now. We're highlighting paragraph 167. Here's what we're highlighting. Most people today approach hip hop as a music genre because that's how rap music is promoted. Moving on. Icons such as Cool DJ Herc are referred to as rap pioneers, even though they, Herc or he, are hip-hop's cultural architects. This is one of the first times this term has ever been written in a book. I've been searching this term cultural architect for a while in hip-hop books, and I haven't come across it. Now, maybe if one of you do, let me know. But this term is rare. It's very rare that hip-hop's icons, those that are called pioneers or forefathers and mothers or so on. These are fake titles. Now, we recognize pioneers in the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace. We recognize these titles, but that ain't what these people are. That's what they're being labeled, a pioneer. What they are cultural architects. They are the actual builders of the culture. Now, they don't see this for themselves, too, and I gotta say this with all due respect. A lot of them don't approach themselves as cultural architects. And not like you demanding something, but go ahead and further study the perfection of your craft. Most people don't even, they don't recognize themselves as cultural architects. They just say, I did that, man, and and show me some respect because I did that. But in reality, it's more than respect that they should be getting. It should be protection. You created something that of value. Where's the state's protection? How can we just be ripped off like this? So I just want to highlight this part right here. Most people today approach hip-hop as a music genre because that's how rap music is promoted and deliberately promoted. Icons such as Kool DJ Herc are referred to as rap producers, even though he are hip-hop's cultural architects, even spiritual leaders. Every one of hip-hop's cultural architects believe God, walk with God, every one of us. Moving on. In my observations, this perception of people like Kool DJ Herc, the recognized father of hip-hop, and also that's another word, the recognized father of hip-hop. Matter of fact, you know what? Wow. You're going to have to go ahead and highlight the whole 167. I thought I can get away with a specific, but you know what, y'all? Just go ahead and highlight the whole 167. Go ahead and get that, because this is important as well. In my observation, this perception of people like Kool DJ Herc, like he's just a pioneer. He ain't the spiritual leader of a culture. He's not the cultural architect of hip-hop. In my observations, this perception of people like Kool DJ Herc, the recognized father of hip-hop, stagnates our collective development today as a hip-hop community. Now, this is interesting. Now, when we say recognized father of hip-hop, what we're dealing with here, the reason we use the word recognized is because Kool Herc, in truth, is not really the father of hip-hop. Hip-hop doesn't have a father. Hip-hop in and of itself, when you're dealing with it from a scholarly, on-the-ground, factual point of view, it can only come from God, factually. Nobody knows how hip-hop came into being. Hip-hop was already in existence when we realized it. Okay, it was already here. When we would realize it was scattered, it was over there, it was over there, it was over there. And that's why people say, oh, hip-hop ain't this and that, it's really only this. And they're right to an extent, because it is this, it is that. It's a combination of all these different things. Hip-hop was going on. God is the only one that really could take credit for the creation of any culture, really. Natural forces, intelligence from the universe, these kind of things, ancestors, spirits, things you can't see, circumstances, situations, events, right time, right place. These things create cultures, and no human can ever take responsibility, take credit for that, or responsibility, but credit for that. Kool DJ Herc is the recognized father of hip hop, because we recognize that there were others that can rightfully be called fathers of hip-hop, like Africa Bambaataa, like DJ Hollywood, like the people who were running with her, like Pebbly Pooh, or Timmy Tim, or Coke La Rock, or the Nigga Twins, the Woo Breakers, or Phase 2, the graffiti writer, rest in peace. Any of these people can claim a fathership or a pioneership in the creation of hip-hop. Obviously, and the names go on and on. So realize that, recognize that. What is the correct title for Kool Herc? Kool Herc is the recognized father of hip hop. We all recognize him as the father of hip hop because he starts what we do, what we eventually wound up becoming. The breaking, MCing, graffiti art, and DJing and beatboxing that we became is said to have come from Kool DJ Herc, and this is coming from Pee Wee Dance, AD from the Cold Crush, Grandmaster Caz from the Cold Crush. Also, it used to come from Zulu Nation more prevalently. They've changed their view since then. But it comes from a variety of people, and it's written in all the books as well. that Cool DJ Herc is the recognized father of hip hop. We know there are others that can rightfully claim the same thing, but we recognize Cool DJ Herc because those who were there say yes. We couldn't get into the disco jams where others were playing. We couldn't get into these other places where others were doing their thing. What Cool Herc was doing, we were allowed to come into. And from there, the breaks, cutting, scratching, rapping, breaking, all of that stuff became prevalent. Graffiti writing. Herc was a graffiti writer. All of this stuff became prevalent. So he's the recognized father of hip-hop because he brought the elements together. Approaching Cool Herc, the father, historically as simply a DJ is like approaching Jesus, the Christ, historically as simply a carpenter. Not only does such a perception limit the potential of the community influenced by such a perception, but such a view of hip-hop is simply inaccurate historically. Cool DJ Herc is far more than a DJ, and hip-hop is far more than a music genre. Arriving in the United States from Jamaica sometime around 1967, Cool DJ Herc, an abbreviation for Hercules, was known for having the biggest and the loudest sound system in the Bronx, which attracted many street kids, young poets, graffiti writers, DJs, and especially b-boys. Cool DJ Herc would attract huge crowds to the playgrounds and parks of the West Bronx, playing the instrumental breaks of songs by recording artists such as James Brown, as well as the amazing bongo band, Apache. In fact, the song was called Apache. In fact, James Brown's popular recordings would become Cool DJ Herc's main records to play. And while many DJs in the Bronx, like El Marco, Mandingo, DJ Maboya, Elvis 007, and others, were also playing James Brown recordings in the same neighborhood too, by the way. Cool DJ Herc was considered a street DJ because he would play his music on huge sound on a huge sound system outside in the playgrounds and parks of the Bronx regularly for free. These events were called jams. One place where we were able to hear Cool DJ Herc jam was at the 1520 Sedgwick Avenue Community Center in the Bronx. This community center, which was part of the housing tenement where Cool DJ Herc lived, was connected to a playground park where Herc was known to DJ on his huge sound system. This is one of the main places where hip-hop as an art form is said to have started sometime around 1972, 1973. The apartment building directly on the other side of the playground park was 1600 Sedgwick Avenue, and this is where I lived from about 1972 to 1974. During these times, the 1970s, the whole political and social structure of the United States was changing. During this time, major recording artists, actors, athletes, and academicians were all openly protesting and speaking out against war and social injustice. Revolution was in the air. Being influenced by the living conditions and national events of the day, unemployment, drug addiction, the Vietnam War, police misconduct, poverty, racism, civil rights, etc., or the lack of civil rights, etc., the population at both 1520 as well as 1600 Sedgwick Avenue were very much politically and socially active. This community was not just singing and dancing, we were also praying and protesting. This is why what I'm reading to you is so important, and also why it's important to hear your history straight from your history. Not from some interpreter, but from a person who was not only there, but actually participated in the creation of what it is you're studying. You can't get no better knowledge than this.
Thank you, TEACHA, again for another wonderful, enlightening teaching and reading from our Gospel of Hip Hop. What we're dealing with is really an opportunity. TEACHA spoke in the beginning about complaints of almost really everything within human affairs or in our existence in reality. And hip hoppers need to not make that mistake, or in a sense not let these complaints slow you down. A lot of times people get caught up in their complaints, and their complaints really become their mode of action, or in their mind, that's, or the revolution is their complaints. And unfortunately, in real revolution, complaining is not revolution at all. And don't get it confused. Don't get confused complaining with revealing. And because there is a time within revolution of which, yes, things must be pointed out in order to try to wake up the masses, so to speak. But that's just one part of the revolution. There's actions that need to be taken. And again, if you spend pretty much your entire life, or not your entire life, but if you spend too much time even just trying to do that, see, there steps to revolution. Obviously, you have to wake up yourself. Then you have to study, you have to learn. Then you warn your people, and hopefully come up with solutions within that warning. And this is something that I feel as though a lot of leaders skip, but to me it's like they almost skip it because it's not necessary, because the people they're not going through the steps themselves. So if they don't turn around and wake up themselves, study, learn, and warn the people as well, and come up with solutions that are going to be executed in a specific amount of time, or I don't want to say specific, because it's not like, okay, we give y'all 3 years to wake up. You don't wake up after that? No. But it is essentially a period of time. I want to say that, or you don't mark a date, but it's really a feeling that says, okay, no, we've talked about this too much. Too much talk without any action doesn't make sense. And to me, I feel as though hip-hop is coming to that opportunity and these pivotal moments, because hip-hoppers, I feel as though they have woken up. Not only have they woken up, many hip-hoppers have put their time in their studies. Many hip-hoppers have been warned. And then many hip-hoppers have been given solutions from our own gospel of hip-hop, if I may say so. and the teachings and direction from our teacher, KRS-ONE. Now, that being said, the question is, how long do we wait? Because we're thinking about building. We're not complaining, or we already know that those who are exploiting us and those who are trying to take advantage of us, those who have colonized us, those who try to capitalize off of our beings, we know they're not going to help. It's obvious now. It's been a long, exhausting amount of heartache, hardships, craziness, disrespect, wild shit, inhumane actions taken against many people across the world. And so, essentially, the answer is hip-hopia. That's the answer. Now, or that's the solution. Government isn't messing with you, make your own government. Police in your city doing you wrong every chance they get, make your own city. It's very, very simple. Really. And it's so messed up because then, of course, people are going to come and argue that because of the responsibility and accountability that then puts on them, to say, well, how are you going to build a city? Or how are we going to build a city? And then, well, what makes you the head of this city? What makes you the leader of this city? And da-da-da-da-da. And then the infighting and all of this. Which is weird. Really, because those that are in fear, you shouldn't even be thinking about this. This is detrimental to your health. These type of ideas are not good for you, because it causes worry and anxiousness. So, but either way, people like that, and then in fear that they're going to be left out, are like, well, if it really is going to be built, if it really is going to happen, don't leave me. A lot of people want the solutions, but don't want to fight for the solutions, or don't want to really participate in the process of the solution. But of course, they want to reap the benefits of the solutions, and that's natural. But so, I just want to say in conclusion that be aware of the opportunity and ask yourself, what am I doing today to set up for Hip Hop City? What am I doing today that is going to enhance hip hop for real? What is really going to help manifest hip hop on this earth? Real hip hop. This is and why too. This is what really this overstanding really deals with a lot, is the why. what and the why, really. So we'll continue next week. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. We will have excerpts very likely of the lecture TEACHA did discussing the same things as far as property, nation building. Next week, and if not, it'll be a part of its own little presentation, I'm sure. See, I'm trying to watch my promises. So again, thank you, and also let me also point out, shout out to everybody at every show. People who are tuning in are showing up at the show. Or temple members, real temple members, that some we haven't seen for a very long time, some that are brand new, or not really brand new, but you get what I'm saying. No, thank you. For right now, coming and meeting us there, even if to exchange numbers real quick and touch bases and I want to say, or really, yeah, nah, listen, we go, this is what it is, okay? Fucking COVID. I'm sorry, I should have said that. But no, embrace. How about that? It's a good time to do that as we organize and get ready to see where the real hip hop is. And it's dope that you guys are actually showing up and that you're there, and really proving to be the very serious ones of the hip hop community. Again, a lot of people just come to come for entertainment, and sometimes for an inspiring word, but they're just not in the position or in that part of their life of which they would dedicate themselves to the temple of hip hop. So salute yourself, or in hip hop itself. And when I say hip hop, or in that sense, or in that statement, I'm referring to God, or that term, hip hop. But so salute yourself, really, and know that you are special, and that we have a great work to do, but and it won't necessarily be easy, but it is going to make reality much, much better for future generations, for thousands and thousands, if not more, years to come. Peace and much love. We will see you guys next week. I am Minister Sun One.
Remember yourself. Put yourself back together. Remind yourself. Sit back, relax, and reacquaint yourself. Get back to that original, primitive, savage, naked self. Brace yourself, recreate yourself, make yourself. For too long you've been taught to hate yourself. Man, don't forsake yourself, reawake yourself. Take yourself much higher. History's not our story, man, the devil is a liar. Listen to nothing the outside world says about you. The world is made to reroute you, distract you, and then doubt you. Most these rappers bout the world, KRS is about you. So remember when I taught taught you about how to in and the out do. Go inside your inner city, quickly going in you. Have an interview with that energy that's within you. Ask yourself, why you? Why now? Why here? Then it becomes quite clear you are divine. You should not fear bills. You should not fear thrills. You should not stare. Focus your attention on God, which is right here. Yourself. Put yourself back together. Reconnect. Yeah. Listen. No one's ever gonna tell you that you are divine, cause they ain't reached that mind, and all this time they still are blind. They tell you get in line, follow them and look for signs. Man, that's baby milk, here's the raw meat, yo, it's cooking time. It's the way in which you look at brain and look at mine. You thinking they the same, but if you look again, you'll find the whole design of nature's really from a gifted mind, a divine mind, outside what we call space and time. This divine mind is what creates brains, hearts, and livers. This divine mind produces butterflies from caterpillars and everything that quivers. Brains don't make brains, the process of birth does. I'm telling you, life is a game with its own mind, its own name, and its own aim. It's simple and plain. Divine mind produces all brains. You are a divine mind first, which then produces your brain. Divine intelligence or God, that's from which you came. Remember yourself. Put yourself back together. Remind yourself.
Christ is an African word, KRST. When the Greeks later on took that up and the Romans they call Christus, it is first appears in African Christ. The concept of the Christ, the 8th form, the 7 stages are forms of man, which then becomes a supreme divine form, the Christ. Hence you have Christianity before Christ. The idea, the concepts, even the words, even the images, the virgin birth, the 3 kings, those are Egyptian ideas. Those were the 3 great stars in the firmament, the 3 kings, which then became the 3 powers on earth that came to worship the divine form. It's all there. It's on the temples of Luxor before the birth of Jesus.